integrity. And if you want to say otherwise, prove it. Prove it, because I will say they're deeply dishonest. These sort of innuendos that they're peddling, deeply dishonest. And they should come out and stand up. If they have any dignity, if they have any shred of honesty in them, come out and say where it is. Because we can prove them wrong.
Now, some of these commentators themselves and persons, aligned to political parties have themselves at one point or time in the past worked with NICIL, either benefited financially for the services they have provided, consultancy or so. It would be surprising for you to tell us probably who these persons are and how naive it is that some of these said individuals are the biggest critics now of entities which they were publicly aligned to or have done some work with.
Well, we work with many professional firms, many groups. When we set about producing consolidated accounts for NICIL, we hired Chris Ram and Ram and McRae.
When you say you're talking about
Christopher Ram, yeah. The same person who every day is writing about NICIL.
Okay.
Well, as a professional, we hired his accounting firm and himself to provide training and accountancy work for us in 2003 and 2004. Right? This is the same person who today he's an accountant, tomorrow he's a journalist. And so we hired him then. They're members of the AFC. Mr. Nagamutu has served as a legal advisor, as an attorney on transactions for the Burbage Bridge, for Dutch-4. He's serving as an arbitrator. I'm not saying that Mr. Ramjattan will not do his job, but you have cases where you have people. Mr. Nagamutu will not do his job as an arbitrator. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying that some of these same people who are saying that we're doing this and we're spending money have been the recipients of fees paid by NICIL for professional services.
Is that dishonest to professionally do a job, be associated with a firm, understand clearly the operations of the firm, and then to come out in public and so say otherwise after you've already benefited from the if you want to call it the meter or whatever the case may be, to come out and say, look, I know these people, or not to say first of all that I have been associated with this company in this way or that way and I have done and benefited, and then criticize, but just to come out with a criticism as though we're all holy men or we're all men of the cloth.
After Enron and WorldCom and all of these transactions, you now see very popular journalists, very first thing they'll say is, I own shares or I'm affiliated, or these disclosures are now becoming customary. So indeed, if you're doing business or you're in receipt of income, you should disclose it. But I don't see much of that happening.
All right. The way forward now, if the NICIL issue continues to be in the political ball field, what is at stake? What will we lose? You've mentioned it a little bit about the companies being probably dissolved and the inefficiency that could be associated with a NICIL that rushes to the treasury every time it needs to get its business done. But more so, I believe there may be some serious implications with respect to investment and doing business in Guyana with this state. Your take on that?
For years, any big transaction that we're working on, be it the Burbage Bridge, be it the Hydro, be it the Marriott, we have been dogged by criticism by people who are seeking to pull down the project to make it not happen. Despite these criticisms, we've persevered and succeeded. I think that if these people continue as it is, very few people will want to do business with Guyana, with the government, because they will feel that they come in and the opposition will start to throw mud at them without any justification. Oh, a secret deal, a secret MOU, this can't happen, why are we doing this? At the end of the day, the government is the elected government, they're the executive. Parliament has a role, and we're willing to be accountable to Parliament. All of these questions that are being asked about NICIL, because we're not the auditor, the question should be directed through the Public Accounts Committee to the Auditor General. Tell us why NICIL audits are now completed. They have not been using the parliamentary process to get information. Instead, they've descended into cheap political theatrics, grandstanding in the public media, in the public arena, ignoring the past, ignoring all that's out there. And I think they're just doing it to be destructive. They're not interested in seeing Guyana develop. They're interested in sowing the seeds of destruction. So maybe one day they'll be able to get in. They're not working constructively.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Brassington, for joining us and Under the Microscope. Several issues have come out. Now, finally, if you have any other closing comments that you'd wish to make at this point in time, you can go ahead.
Well, I think that overall, NICIL is committed to being open about what it does. We're willing to, despite the fact that the audited accounts are now completed, which we've said is not our fault, we're willing to provide information. This privatization booklet that is being updated will be a very useful bit of information. One can obtain information on what we published in 2008 by going to www.privatization.gov.gy. I've also recently taped a program with Olive Gopal. It will be aired on NCN tomorrow Sunday and repeated during the week on Wednesday. And I speak more about NICIL in different respects. We are open to answering any question from Parliament. We are tabling the accounts in Parliament. I think that all of this may make us realize the role of public enterprises. I think we've taken a lot of this for granted, and in the last decade, public enterprises in Guyana have turned the corner. This is a group now that are commercially viable, that doesn't require money from the Treasury, and has been contributing money to the Treasury. My closing comment. In the last 10 years, we've paid over $9 billion in dividends to the Treasury. This is all in the public record. You don't hear a single mention of this from the opposition. In the last 20 years, we've paid over $20 billion in privatization proceeds and dividends to the Treasury. We don't hear any comment about that. When Mr. Gulsaran wanted to audit privatizations, I'm advised that he has a letter from Mr. Greenwich which said he's not the auditor for privatizations. He cannot audit it. Yet Mr. Greenwich today wants an independent audit after this government passed a law, an audit act, that made it very clear that the Auditor General is the auditor of all state-owned entities. Right? Now he wants to say, the Auditor General, well, let's get a special audit. I remember Mr. Gulsaran upgrading me when we were doing a special accounting or audit exercise of GHC back in the 1990s. He said, I'm the Auditor General of the land, and the law states that you cannot do a single audit without going through me. So I think we've got some double standards here. And I think that what is happening seems to ignore the past. Our record can stand scrutiny. Those who are throwing the attacks, let them put their record to stand scrutiny. Let them put substance to these allegations, and then we will deal with it. Let them be accountable for the numbers that they're throwing around, because I call it jumbie arithmetic. They're just creating this out of nothing. Or they're seemingly peddling information that they should understand better.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Brassington, for joining us and Under the Microscope. It was my pleasure, of course, interviewing you and getting to the bottom of the matter, the meat of the matter with some of these issues. This has been another edition of Under the Microscope. I'm Michael Young. Thank you very much for joining us.